We're here on the farm of James, Chrissy and Tom Murphy in Inistioge in County Kilkenny. Tom here is in a dairy-based system, spring calf and herd. Tom, you wouldn't tell us a little bit about your story in dairy and how you actually got going?
Yeah, so when I graduated from college there, I kind of had my mind made up that if I wanted to farm full time, I'd have to go milking cows. So I went to England for a year in 2015. Back in 2016, we did a business plan and we went milking then in 2019. So we came from a dry stock setup on the farm here. We always had sucklers and sheep. Did about 70-80 acres of spring barley. And then when we started milking in 2019, we just started scaling back on them enterprises. So, and we started the first year then with 95 cows, and today we're up to 200.
Yeah. Okay.
So
how challenging was it making that conversion?
The farm I was on over in England was 500 cows, so for me it was all part of the plan. No, it's more challenging for mum and dad because they're not.
Yeah.
They came from a dry stock system, like, so more challenging for them. But for me, it wasn't too challenging.
Yep.
You know, I mean, like, we didn't get in big numbers. We started with 98. So we didn't jump straight into it or anything. We kind of went up gradually over the years, like, so worked fine, you know.
You're a grass-based system here, and clover is a major part of the system that you have here. Okay, so could you tell us a little bit about how you got started with clover and some of the benefits that it's actually bringing to your system on the farm?
Well, so we started when I came home in 2016. The whole farm had to reseed it, so we started reseeding and incorporating clover into all the swards that were reseeded. Yep. So from there we started seeing the benefits. So 2016, milking 2019, and then the cows started milking 2019, 20, 21, 22. We're seeing the production of the cows. The cows are milking well. Protein averaged about 4% last year, and fat was about 4.56.
Yeah.
So the production of the cows, I'm seeing a huge difference in the swards that have the clover in it and the swards that don't.
So look, Tom, we're coming under more and more pressure every year, you know, with reductions in nitrogen, and I suppose they're very important to try and protect water quality. You've done a brilliant job here of actually reducing your chemical nitrogen input. What level are you down to on the clover swards here now? I'm
down now to 85 kilos of nitrogen per hectare. That's where we're at now, and it still grows 15 tonne of dry matter per hectare.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
It's still motoring on with the rest of the farm, no problem whatsoever.
Yeah. You've been fairly good at looking at your soil sample results, and I suppose I've been sitting down with you over the last couple of years, and we've been looking at a nutrient management program, and you've been working with us as part of the sustainability program. In terms of your fertiliser strategy and what fertiliser you're going to use this year, could you give us a little bit of an idea of what way you're going to approach it this year?
I'll be starting off at the start of the year. The first quarter will be the very same. The whole farm will be treated the very same way. So the aim is to have the 70 units out by the 1st of April. Yep. Be it 3,000 gallons of slurry, which it'll get, and then I'll make up the rest of my chemical M with protected urea. From the 1st of April onwards, then I'll start scaling backwards, back down at the end. And then by June, I like to go in with Clover Boost, which is 8 units of N and your small bit of P and your small bit of K. And I use that for the rest of the summer, and I see no difference whatsoever in my growth.
And I think that's key. Like we're as part of the nutrient management program or sustainability plan, we're looking at your slurry, we're looking at your nitrogen inputs up until April and May, when the soil starts to get warm and clover really starts to kick into gear, and we're starting to make our reductions on nitrogen from there on, and that's really what Clover Boost is doing. Look, I just want to say thanks very much, Tom, for having us here today. I think the points that you've brought here are very important, and they could actually help a lot of farmers there going forward. So look, thanks very much for having us here today.
No bother at all.
I suppose there's a lot of challenges on farm. Water quality is a massive element that needs to be protected, along with air quality and greenhouse gases. And I suppose the importance of looking at the likes of clover, soil structure, and looking at alternatives to using chemical nitrogen are going to be really important for all farming systems going forward. So if you need any more information on anything we've discussed today, please contact your local grassland advisor who can be of massive help in terms of your nutrient management and really establishing clover on your farm and managing it going forward.
So the lads talked an awful lot about clover and the benefits it has for Tom's farm. We want to talk a little bit about clover nutrients, Caitlin. Nitrogen, phosphorus, potash, sulphur and pH, they're all very, very important.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about the nitrogen strategy that will be used on the clover swords here on Tom's swords going forward.
Yeah, and Caitlin, you've recently, after publishing an update on, I suppose, the best nitrogen strategy in springtime and during the summer for clover as well.
Yeah, so the new nitrogen strategy is linked to the clover percent on your farm. So the percentage of clover on each paddock is very important to when you're reducing nitrogen. So when you're making those decisions, you know, you have to have about 20% clover to reduce that, to have it fixing about 100 kilos of nitrogen, and that's when you can make your nitrogen reductions on that paddock.
Okay, so we have the potential to get the equivalent of nearly 3 bags of canned fertiliser from clover in the year?
Yeah, it's fixing around 100 kilos in the year, that's about the average, and more or less depending on the location.
Yeah, brilliant. And Caitlin, I suppose, how do you assess maybe the clover content? What are the times to do that so that you can make those decisions on nitrogen?
Perfect. So the most important time for making decisions on nitrogen, John, is in April when you're kind of starting your second rotation. You know, paddocks have been grazed. They've kind of got a pre-grazing cover of about 1,500 on them. It's the best time clover is most visible. So when you're walking through a paddock, you can see clover at every step. That's kind of a good indication that there's a good spread of clover across the field, because it's more important to get the spread of clover than it just in one area of the field.
Caitlin, this particular paddock was grazed on the 10th of February and it's been a very tricky spring, and I suppose Tom is still managing to maintain clover here. So we had a big debate about the cover. We think it's 700, isn't that right? In and
around that, so growing around 23 days since the 10th of February.
Very, very good.
Very good growth, yeah.
But in springtime, irrespective of clover, I suppose one key message is we follow the normal nitrogen strategy.
Yeah, nitrogen strategies are the same until the start of May. So you're giving your same on your grass clover swords until the start of May.
Yeah, brilliant. Phosphorus is probably a big one as well, Caitlin. So phosphorus is really a spring nutrient as well. So I suppose the primary role of phosphorus is to supply energy to the plant, to promote root development and tillering, and that's very, very important for the clover plant too.
Yeah, so P and K are very important, and like I suppose you're just talking about phosphorus at the moment, but it's important that clover is, you know, index 3 or 4. It's only going to stay on those paddocks that do have those indexes.
Yeah. And I suppose, Caitlin, we're talking about spring nutrients, right? So phosphorus is very, very important. It's going to kickstart the plant, so kickstart the grass, and then it'll be very beneficial for the clover as well. But I suppose the actual grazing and allowing light into the sward is very important for tillering too.
Yeah, definitely. So what we'd recommend, you know, on reseeds from last year, that they're your kind of last close, and you know, you're getting into them early in the first spring rotation. So it's important that there's light, you know, getting to the clover plant at all times to make sure that the stolons are ready to take off when temperatures, you know, move up again.
Yeah, so the key things for phosphorus, we need to be working off our soil tests. We need to, I suppose, target 50% to 3/4 of our phosphorus early and then spread out the rest during the year. Very, very important, I suppose, if you don't have a P allowance, maybe to prioritise organic manures like slurry, because they have a high phosphorus content as well, so they can be used in springtime as a nutrient source as well.
Yes, and it's most available in spring when you are using organic nutrients, so that is important, and I suppose utilising them again throughout the middle of the year, you know, in terms of soil water and on your silage swords.
Caitlin, potash is really important nutrient for clover as well.
Yeah, so it's especially important. It's for stolon development. It's especially important, and in red clover swords, you know, they kind of are more K hungry throughout the year.
Yeah, there can be massive offtake of potash from red clover. White clover, it's very important to get it in there as well. For this particular farm, really, really important, because it is a little bit drier and it can help in a drought situation. But I suppose, Caitlin, we've covered nitrogen, phosphorus and potash. Sulphur is a nutrient that maybe is very, very important. Maybe part of your Clover 150 group have seen positive results to it too.
Yeah, so it's just important, you know, that grazing swords need about 15 to 20 kilograms of sulphur throughout the year, and, you know, just to take that into consideration when you're spreading your protected urea.
Yeah, and sulphur is very, very important for moving the nitrate in the plant into utilisable forms of protein for the animals, which is really, really important. I suppose NPKS, but the most important of all is pH. And if we don't have a good pH, we can lose up to 2/3 of the chemical fertiliser that we apply. We can significantly erode the bank of nitrogen coming from mineralisation from the soil as well. But maybe what is the target pH for a grass clover sward?
So the minimum pH needed for a grass clover sward would be about 6.3. But the higher the pH is, the better for that clover establishment and clover persistency in the sward.
Yeah, so pushing the pHs to 6.5, I suppose, is a change from a grass only sward where we target 6.3, but it is fundamentally very, very important. And these things maybe need to be taken into account when you're over sowing as well. Maybe select a paddock that has good fertility.
Yeah, soil fertility needs to be, spot on all clover or on paddocks that you're eyeing up to over sow, because the clover won't persist. You might have it for a year, but it definitely won't survive long term.
This particular paddock where we're standing, I suppose, very tricky spring. Tom is very anxious to get cows out to grass and is pushing the boundaries. Maybe tiny little bits of damage, but we can see here today, even when there's good fertility, that clover plant is actually coming back as well.
Yeah, and the sward's sitting around 10%. It's probably in a good position, once Tom gets another grazing on it. But there's a lot of space built up, when the spring grazing happens, and the clover will move into that.
Yeah, and really, really important to graze off. Nearly the best fertiliser in springtime is graze, and kick-starts the plant out of senescence.
Yeah, so clover is very light hungry, and you do need to keep those covers on it, especially in an oversown sward. You're always targeting to graze it at around 1,000 in that first year.
Caitlin, I suppose we've a big potential to reduce the chemical fertiliser that's been applied, especially nitrogen, by using white and red clover. But I suppose the form of nitrogen that is preferred now is protected urea.
Yeah, so protected urea plus NBPT, helps reduce nitrous oxide emissions and emissions associated with spreading fertiliser throughout the year.
Yeah, and I suppose, Caitlin, a big development this year is that there's the potential to make NBPT treated urea NPK compounds, which there wasn't previously, and that opens up a big portfolio of products that we can shift from can-based alternatives now into NBPT treated urea, which is really, really positive from an emission point of view. Thanks very much, Caitlin. Thanks for some brilliant information. Very important to get your nutrients right for clover, very sensitive crop. Right product, right rate, right time, right place. Any further information, get in touch with your local Teagasc advisor, or indeed get in touch with Grassland Agro. Any of our agronomy team will be happy to advise.